Well, I'm really excited today to be joined by Roberta Schwartz, who is the Executive Vice President at Houston Methodist and also the Chief Innovation Officer at Houston Methodist. So thanks so much for joining me today.
It is a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
I can only imagine the amount of things that are on your plate with all of those titles. You kind of popped up. I grew up in Houston, so I'm obviously very familiar with Methodist, and you all have a wonderful reputation. But I was at Health USA in Vegas earlier this year and saw that you all were talking about some topics around innovation, and so that's how I came to reach out. So I'd just love to know about what all is on your plate and just kind of a broad overview of some of your responsibilities at Methodist.
So I hold two incredible jobs at Houston Methodist. The first one is I am the leader of the Academic Medical Center here in the Texas Medical Center. So this is about 1,000 bed hospital, mostly and almost exclusively for adults. And we have a very large population of people who come through our physician practices, our emergency room, our outpatient, inpatient. So that's kind of job one. The second job is I lead innovation activities and particularly digital innovation activities for our system. I do a lot of our partnerships that help bring in different innovations to our system that the return on the investment with those partnerships is quality, it's financial, it's moving us forward, it's transforming the activities of our organization and the way that we work.
Yeah, lots of exciting and changing things there. How did you, on your career journey, find yourself in kind of the innovation space? Obviously, healthcare is so massive, and innovation is a part of it, but there's so many other parts of it as well. How did you find yourself here?
You know, it's kind of funny. This was never my intention. This is my 34th year doing healthcare administration, having started more on the physician side of the house and kind of moving into hospitals about 24 years ago. I would never have called myself a technology innovator. In fact, my children make fun of me for my inability to use my iPhone as I get lessons from them every so often. But I've always been interested in the transformation of medicine and the way to do it better. So I did a stint with the government in looking at policy and the way that would work. And when I saw different industries being transformed, I was really inspired, shall we say, to look at the ways they had done it through technology and bringing that so that we could transform ourselves because healthcare is really complicated. And people from the outside always think like, oh, I can just, I can just fix it and I have a magic wand and don't worry, like I'm going to give you the information that's going to allow for this complete transformation. The issue is with a really complex system where it has various strands. And if you pull one the wrong way, the entire kind of that entire sweater comes apart. You have to do that carefully, and you really need to understand all the interlinking pieces, whether that is regulation, whether that is the physician pieces that need to fit together, what needs to go into the electronic medical record. Every different piece holds a puzzle piece of kind of our interwoven fabric of the system. Whether you love it, hate it, think it's great, everything about it is broken, you still need to fit these interlocking transformation pieces in. The ability that I have and where I sit is because I do understand operations, because I am over operations. Fitting in these pieces of technology became, to me, a great puzzle in figuring out how to move the pieces around and make it even better. It's kind of like that game of bananagrams. And sometimes you just have to rip it apart to put the pieces back together again. So when our operational colleagues got together with our IT colleagues and started to get excited about how we could do this better, I just happened to be sitting in the right seat at the table to kind of help take our activities forward. But at Houston Methodist, we work so much in teams. It really is this incredible team that we call the DIOP, the Digital Innovation Obsessed People, that really is the group that has come together to design the strategy for the organization and be able to carry it forward. I can promise you, I am just the person who sits at the head of the table to bring everyone together, but we have this incredible team behind us.
Yeah, it really is crazy how many components there are, and you think like, hey, maybe if I plug in this piece of technology or this, new app or whatnot here, And then you realize, oh wow, there's like 10 other things it's going to impact, and there's other stakeholders that you need to talk to and get buy-in from. And it's I'm sure other sectors are very complicated, but it seems like healthcare is particularly a little more complicated than the others. My
Well, and one of
question,
the other
yeah,
things is that each of these technologies that come to the table are like Venn diagrams. I fix this and I fix this. And it's not like they fix these independent things. They all like have this interlinking part. And so, you don't want to take one and take the other one out. You got to figure out how they all fit together. So, understanding exactly what pieces and part of the equation they're fixing becomes just as complicated as implementing them.
yeah, absolutely. And when we say or talk about innovation, for example, at health, when you say innovation, like everyone there talks about AI, but I, for example, will work at a rural hospital in Texas, and for them, they may have an EMR that's like 20 years old, or maybe not 20 years old, but like just really slow. And for them, innovation may be upgrading to the next iteration of that, or even EMS service being able to send an EKG to them remotely before they get there. And so when you look at innovation, and obviously Houston Methodist has partners externally and whatnot as well, what do you see under that umbrella? Obviously, AI is there, we'll get to that, but what are some of the other components of innovation that obviously are still very important and exist that, we just don't talk about enough when you go to a large healthcare conference or turn on the news?
We often refer to them as like big eyes and little eyes. A big eye is something where you're taking a process and you're transforming the way we carry it out. So yesterday I used to have, and I still do, please don't get me wrong, all palliative care doctors who go to the bedside. And tomorrow I have a combo of virtual palliative care doctors that do it in the evening on the weekends, and I have in person in the middle of the day. So if they need an in-person, they're going to wait until the next day. But if they need somebody immediately, we just press the button and they're going to get on camera, right? It's changing the way we work. And sometimes we'll try multiple models in virtual nursing. Sometimes we'll try one model where we have just admission discharge nurses or people who are doing audits. And then in another hospital, we'll do an experiment where you have team-based virtual care nurses. So again, those are big eyes. You're changing the way you work, and then all of a sudden you can't remember how you did it without the people. I mean, particularly virtual nursing, when we put it in, I had nurses who stood like, if you really want to help me, you'll get me a nurse at the bedside. And I was like, well, let's try this, let's try a new way of doing our business. And the answer now is they can't actually remember. Like if I tried to take away those virtual nurses, I would probably be tied up and thrown in a closet. It is fundamentally, we can't remember the way. Same thing with virtual ICU. Like I can tell you it was incredibly controversial when we put it in, incredibly controversial. Now that this is the way we do our business, we can't imagine not doing our business this way. It's just kind of the way that we operate. So I think as we look at these things, it's been fairly fascinating to watch those big eyes, right? The little eyes are within the record. We have a automatic consult to PT every time we work. Okay, well, let's change the way the order sets work. Let's change the way our workflows are. Let's transform those little eyes. Those are really important. And you can't continue to improve both financially and on your quality measures if you aren't doing both those big eyes and the little eyes. The little eyes are easy. Not easy. Nothing about changing healthcare is easy, but they're easier. You're working within the current framework. The big eyes is changing the way you do your business. So the way we're implementing currently AI in radiology. And part of it is the way we do our patient management, and part of it is doing just the way the AI will assist physicians in reading their scans. The reading the scans, both some are excited, some are frustrated, some don't want it pointing out too much, not enough. However, when you look at the patient management and okay, once that scan is read, without even radiologists confirming it, it's going to send out a message to 16 people saying, we've got a PE, everybody come in, look at the scan, what do we need to do, without having to call a critical result to 16 different people. And it automatically triggers those next steps. When you start doing that, you change the entire way that patients are going to be managed. That's a big I, and
Yeah,
takes a lot of work.
absolutely. Yeah. And it's for example, and that's a perfect example, right? Every time there's a critical finding like a PE, radiologist has to physically call me and the clerk has to get me on the phone and they have to tell me at the hospital system I work with. That's like a lot of work for the radiologist, that's work for the clerk who's got like 10 other calls. That's, numerous steps that is burdensome. And those are the types of things that we may not think about it as much, but lead to burnout and, shift fatigue and making those, decisions during shift. And so that little I, like you said, can sometimes be the most important thing for things like, the one thing that's annoying the clinician over and over again. You're like, oh yeah, my life is so much better now that I don't have to do that.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because the question is, are they after they call you, who do you have to call, right?
Exactly.
Usually it goes, okay, we go to nurse, nurse goes to hospitalist, or sometimes we go radiologist to hospitalist, and then we go hospitalist to vascular surgeon, and we go this one to that. By the time you put this together, and then hold on, let's call the OR team because we're going to rush to the OR, or we're just going to, call in the result to pharmacy. What if you could get that all done right off the scan?
Yeah, 100%. And
That's
it's
why.
better care for the patient. It's less phone calls for the clinicians. It's win-win kind of situation. I um I imagine I'm both envious, but then also a little terrified of like the requests that come to you, right? So like you have a cool job where you get to see a lot of cool technologies that people are like, hey, this is gonna make this better or that better, and if you see the merit in that, you and your team can embrace that. But at the same time, there's probably a lot of hype that comes in the door, or a lot of things that are maybe not realistic. How do you kind of in your position make that decision of like, we've got a limited number of resources and finances. This is how I'm going to distribute them when it comes to innovation and technology in 2025.
Part of it is kind of knowing all the things that you're doing. Because the amazing part is how many things you're already doing in any big system that people don't actually know about. So I spent a lot of time connecting dots. Oh, wait, you wanted you want to explore this situation with said vendor. By the way, did you know we have another vendor that we're doing a pilot with in a different hospital, and this is about to hit that exact thing? Or, oh, hold on, I actually know about that one. And their first solution is going to be on the badge, but the second solution is going to be in the iPhone. And we're waiting for solution number two. So no, you can't try solution number one. We're already waiting for number two. So knowing, I think I've made one of my career, kind of successes out of not knowing everything myself, but I am the expert at phone a friend. Hold on, let me check on that. Let me phone a friend. And the ability to kind of be glue that connects each other is great. The second one is we don't mind. Oftentimes, we'll listen to a lot of pitches and we'll say to people, we have a solution for that. I hear you, it might be better, but we're not going to just flip horses because yours is slightly better, even if I may want to, because the amount of work to integrate it and integrate a new solution is going to be high. The third one is we really do demand a return on investment. And we look for anywhere from a 3 to 5 ROI for any solution that we're going to put into place. So being able to prove to us that indeed it has a 3 to 5 ROI and it is transformative in the way that we are going to work, it's actually going to be able to cut people, increase revenue. It's not something that our primary EMR vendor already does or is going to do within the next 6 months. Those are the kinds of things that we really work towards. And when you are true to your rules and true to kind of where you believe this marketplace is or the types of technologies are going, you don't get the new shiny penny isn't quite as attractive because you know that if you pick it up, it's not always shining on the other side. Someone
Yeah.
someone polished the one, but not necessarily the other. So we go into it with a always listening, but a degree of prove it. Um, and it's probably one of the reasons we really don't do alphas at Houston Methodist. We're just too big. We're a place that scales things. We're not a place that you want to easily test something small and see whether or not it works.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that stood out to me and kind of some of the stuff that you all have put out is kind of this word taking bets on the future. And in healthcare, obviously, like it's a traditionally like conservative, like low risk taking, kind of make sure everything is, aligned, make and then make the decision. And so tell me how like the response was like when you're like taking bets on it. Now, obviously, you're not just like blind, like you mentioned, you're not just seeing the shiny penny and saying, "Hey, we're going to put this into like every department," or doing anything like that. But there is a degree of like uncertainty with any new technology or any new innovation, and then using like that kind of like, "Hey, we're taking somewhat of a risk on embracing this technology." How do like other team members respond to that? Whether it is like, and you alluded to earlier, like nurses around virtual nursing saying, initially being a little hesitant, but then embracing it later on. How does that kind of conversation go, and what have you found that makes it easier or gets more like team members on board essentially?
We did this 3 years ago, and it was incredibly successful in kind of guiding our path. And
Yeah,
so we were thrilled when health allowed us to do it again. Um, and I think that what it does is it forced us to sit down and really think through what we believe in the next 3 years is going to be mature and is going to be very useful and is going to have that ROI. And we thought very deeply. We had an entire, very long conversation about robotics. Did we believe that robotics was going to be there in the next 3 years? What about hospital at home? What about this? What about that? The most important things is not just about what's in our bets, but what's not in our bets. And what's not in our bets is not because we didn't discuss it. It's because we really thought carefully about what we thought would mature in the next 3 years and have that kind of ROI. And the answer is there are a series of things that weren't in there. Um, we got through 1 through 9 really easily. And the interesting one is ambient, the use of agentic AI. Sorry, not ambient. Agentic AI was actually a really interesting conversation for us because it's not a area like an access or a billing or a ambient listening or it wasn't that. It was a underlying technology that may hit every one of our areas of the beds. It may hit the billing, but business modernization, as well as it's going to hit consumer scheduling and access, right? It's going to hit various pieces of it, and it may hit all of them. It's kind of like, as you were saying before, AI. Like AI is going to be a piece of every single technology we use. Like it's like saying it's going to have computer. They're all
yeah,
going to have computer. They're all going to have AI, right? I mean, it's like a innocuous term. But this agentic AI was a little bit different in that it implies, in today's definition of agentic AI, it really implies voice and it implies phone and it implies a connection between a robotic agent, a human alternative, and a person on the other end. And what we carefully really thought through is in the next 3 years, is that going to be the most cost-effective technology to be able to answer a series of if-then statements? And it's nice that it does it in this beautiful natural language. And sometimes you really do have no idea if you're talking to a bot or a human. I was trying to schedule somebody to come and look at a complicated air conditioning problem. And I was 3/4 of the way through the conversation before A, I realized I was talking to a bot. And then B, I realized the bot had absolutely no idea what the hell I was talking about. Um, so it was interesting that, in the basic conversations, they're just fine. The question is, if it's a basic conversation and it's just fine, could it take place via text? Did it need to be via voice with an agent at a more expensive technology? So until that price tag comes down, we were very careful about saying we are going to be we're going to be careful about where and how these get used. And the question is, when is that maturation point? Is it within the next 3 years? Don't think on the non-clinical world, it's probably earlier. On the clinical and basic, on the clinical world, we'll see.
yeah. Still to be determined. It's really funny. I bought a car earlier this year, and I thought I was texting with a human, like the sales rep and whatnot, and we were negotiating prices and whatnot. So then I get there, I'm like, okay, here's my cashier's check for X amount of dollars that we agreed on. And the sales agent had like a shocked look because it was like a few thousand lower than what I guess they thought they had agreed for, but their AI bot and agent had done all the negotiating. So I got a pretty good deal because of the mistake of
Oh,
the bot. Yeah.
thank you. Shows.
Yeah.
I
Um,
appreciate that price.
Exactly, exactly. So I personally benefit in a way. Yeah, the Houston Methodist Cypress Hospital is a very unique hospital in your system, and I won't put words into your mouth, but tell me about it. I know it's a very innovative hospital, different than some of the other locations. Can you give me the background on that? What prompted that kind of point of view and mindset of creating that hospital? And yeah, I would love to learn more about that.
Yeah, these bets that we did like almost 4 years ago, these kind of those 12 bets that we've just kind of updated into our new ones, that's actually what drove the Cypress Hospital. We actually had to do that in order to do the planning for Cypress. So what we did was in all of our other hospitals, we put in most of this technology. I mean, most of our hospitals have all of the same technology, but in Cypress, when you're building de novo new, you're able to do things behind the walls that you can't do in other hospitals. Like you're going to put in just enough plugs to plug in that virtual camera in all your other hospitals. But in our Cypress hospital, we could put in 5 extra plugs for the technology of the future, which allowed us to do some testing in ways that we couldn't do. Same things. I can't necessarily afford to buy all new 70-inch screen TVs for every single one in my room and replan the entire layout of the room for a new TV. But in Cyprus, I could do that. So their ability in a virtual way on a big, big screen to be able to do a lot of virtual work in a much better um, way of looking at the world was just fantastic. So you walk into their hospital, and all along the left-hand side is a series of kiosks. So your check-in, your check-out, that's all now like electronic, virtual, don't have to talk to a human being, can get all of your stuff, walk upstairs without actually ever touching a person. It'll direct you upstairs once you get in bed. You're going to be dealing in a very virtual way with a paired virtual nurse who's there. So all of those things are fascinating in the way that we were able to, right from the start, from the day in the life, plan a technologically enabled hospital. So I think that's been really well done. But what's behind the walls is ready to try the next three things. And I think
Yeah.
that's where we have the advantage in Cyprus. And so, and it's a whole staff that have been hired because they want that innovation experience and they want to be part of that. So whenever we're trialing something, everything's getting trialed at Cyprus now.
Yeah, really cool. And I think that's a very important point. You have the humans that are embracing that environment, and you can have the most amazing technology, but if humans don't buy in or use it, then it's just going to sit in the corner or that app won't be used and then it does no one any good. As we, head into 2026, the next year, what are you most excited about when it comes to innovation? It could be something Methodist is doing, it could be something broader. Just what are you excited about?
I think I'm very excited that we finally are entering the era of doing imaging. So I think that the imaging was kind of a new area for us, both starting in radiology, eventually we'll go into pathology as well. And the robustness by which when we jump into a pool, we jump right into the deep end of the pool. So we're kind of rolling out full suites of products as quickly as we can through the beginning of 2026, and then another suite through the end of 26, and kind of moving into foundation models on the imaging side with ADOC. So I'm really excited about that. I think the next part is the work that we're doing in predictive analytics. And I just look at kind of so many of our different suites of products, whether it's, you know, as I try to stay away from names I know y'all like, but whether it's HDAI or Pieces or Smarter DX or Epic or all the different places where we're looking at these predictive analytics and kind of saying that maturation is just kind of phenomenal. The other thing is ambient voice. It was not so good, then it's great. Now it's so robust in the physician side. We have to get that now into the hands of our nurses in a scalable financial model. And that's really the hardest part of ambient voice is doing that in a scalable, financially viable way. And so I'm excited about bringing that to the hands of a series of new clinicians, which is the thing. I mean, if you think about the fact that our clinicians are spending 40 to 50% of their time in the medical record, doing documentation. If we can basically replace that with ambient voice, then the ability to kind of staff at different levels and kind of stretch people in ways that we just haven't been able to because of our reliance on that time to document really changes. And given the shortage of both nursing, other professionals, as well as physicians, we have to do this. Like that's really, I think the pathway forward is very clear. So again, I could go on and on because I am never short on being tired about talking about all of our innovations, but those are just a few of the snippets of things I'm excited about.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing those. You alluded to it earlier, like I use an ambient scribe every day on shift, and it's like one of those things where, like if for some reason the app's not working that day, or maybe there's like a 10-minute downtime, like it completely throws everything off. I'm like, I can't function without it. And so like, it's just one of those things where like, I don't know how it functioned before this. It's just a part of my routine and I love it. And I feel like I spend more time with my patients. I feel less burned out. I don't work on notes at home. So it's been amazing.
I mean,
Um,
you're doing something good when a clinician comes up to you and says, "You can pry it out of my cold, dead hands." You're like,
yeah.
okay, well, obviously you like it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, final question to end on. A lot of, residents listen to these conversations, other clinicians who are interested in entering the innovation space and getting involved with hospital committees and whatnot. What would you recommend to folks that, maybe don't come from that innovation background, are clinicians, want to get involved? How can they be successful? And the ones that you have seen do well in this space, what have they done well?
It's interesting. Like I look at the work that we're doing in the OR with Pella, and we've looked across at safety, efficiency, lots of work that's being done in the operating room. And I'll say to residents all the time, please use this to design educational programs. Use this to basically watch three before we go in. Figure out how to. You can use this to think about the way we plan a room or do something. Pick a project there. Look at the HDAI data, look at the predictive analytics that it has in there. See how you can do that. Oh, wait, you want to design a virtual residency where the neurosurgery residents can drop in the room after the results are back and tell the patient they're not a surgical candidate? Please come back in the room, but do that virtually where it can take you 10 minutes. You don't have to walk back across our 3 million, square feet campus. Just drop into the room. If everyone just picks out one thing that they think they can do that we can make work, because it's really not too much, think of the amount of innovative minds we can get around the technologies that we have and drive it. It's there, right? It's there and paid for. Now give me a new use case that we can use it for, right? And that's the exciting part. When you get those brilliant minds around the technology and take it in baby steps, it really becomes very exciting.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for spending some time with me and having this conversation. Love what you and your team are doing. Love that y'all are doing it in Houston, and can't wait to continue to see the innovation y'all bring to the city.
Well, thank you so much for having me and having this conversation. I really do, thinking about the fact that we're closing out one year and entering another one, it really is a very exciting time to think about what's in store for 2026 and how much further we can move this field.
Absolutely. Have an amazing year. Happy New Year.